Hello, my name is S.K. Williams, and I am here to announce the glorious return of the Bishop's Bible. You see, one of the first projects I did as making videos or with my animation was to present the Bishop's Bible as an audio Bible, which may sound odd since I was doing it by video, but my videos don't actually illustrate what occurs in the Bible. They simply show me reading the Bible, or reciting it rather. You see, I present a cartoon version of myself dressed as a bishop, reading the Bishop's Bible. I am accompanied by God the Father as a cartoon representation, and by my logo, my symbol that represents me, and they do things in the background whilst I read the text. Now, this project was originally not intended to be quite as silly as it may sound. I was going to do nice, respectful posturings, but after 2 or 3 videos, keep in mind I was still new to animation and using the animation software I had, and I use Crazy Talk Animator from Reallusion for this project. So God's behavior and actions were rather exaggerated. Rather than try and re-record them or try and do better next time, I decided to make that a signature part of the production. So this unique style was created, largely incidentally and accidentally, but it was nevertheless produced. I still nevertheless consider it an audio Bible because the primary reasons for the video's existence is to convey the audio. Indeed, one can strip the video of the audio. The images aren't really necessary. Still, they make it capable for me to upload as a video on sites like this one. I was hoping to have the entire thing completed, but again, my house burned down. I decided to resume work on it. And so I have. So, as with Jesus himself, the Bishop's Bible died, but rose again from the dead. And so shall all hopes, dreams, and ambitions that ride with it. And as I said, I present it as a New Year present for Christmas and as a Christmas present for the New Year. And I hope you enjoy it. A bit of an explanation, though, and keep in mind I can't guarantee the future. I'm a one-man operation, and I may inadvertently fall behind. After all, at the time of this recording, I have all of the Book of Genesis recorded audio, but I haven't animated any of it yet, though I am working on it. And I have most of the Book of Exodus recorded. Indeed, I promised myself I wouldn't even launch this project, at least not now, not at the New Year of 2025, if I had not completed the Book of Exodus, which I did. I completed all 40 chapters of the Book of Exodus, but then my computer crashed and I lost the data for the last few chapters. I decided not to move the date of release and do this another time. I decided to press ahead because I think I can re-record the last few chapters. Here is how I shall be presenting it and the nature of the work. The Bishop's Bible was released in 1568. It was presented as the official Bible for the Church of England and as a revision and replacement for the Great Bible of 1539. It was also released because of the popularity of the Geneva Bible, which King James and certain other authorities did not like because they viewed it as both theologically and politically problematic. More details shall be given in historical talks on the Bishop's Bible later. This is a general overview. But suffice to say, the Geneva Bible was created to combat the Geneva Bible and to remove it from popularity, and was largely intended to be a revision, though also a bit of a new translation, to replace the Great Bible, itself a revision of the Coverdale Bible. What we got instead from the Bishop's Bible is some parts of it are simply copied verbatim from the Great Bible, other parts are revisions of the Great Bible to various degrees, other parts are entirely new translations, and other parts are revisions of the Geneva Bible, or even simply outright copies of the Geneva Bible, which is ironic since it was designed to combat it. The Bishop's Bible is an inconsistent translation of varying quality, comprised by several different translators under the auspices of the bishops of the Church of England. And it was also never very popular, given that it is a very clunky read. It is nevertheless a historically significant Bible, because it was the official Bible of the Church of England, and it is the immediate predecessor of the authorized version that we have today, often better known and more famously known as the King James Version, and hereafter in this video referred to as the authorized King James Version of the Bible. Nevertheless, the King James Bible would not even exist without the Bishop's Bible, because the Bishop's Bible was originally intended as a revision of the authorized King James Version. Nevertheless, the King James Version departs from the Bishop's Bible in several ways, and it is sometimes difficult to know what parts actually came from the Bishop's Bible, or from the Geneva Bible, or from the Great Bible, as there's a lot of overlap. But there are some things that are unique to the Bishop's Bible from previous Bibles that are also in the King James Version, so we do know it had a great deal of influence there as well. For the project of the Bishop's Bible, you will also notice I present the Psalms from the Great Bible. Why do I do this? Well, when the Bishop's Bible was released, they actually produced an entirely new translation of the Psalms. The Psalms, however, that were produced for the Bishop's Bible were clunkier and harder to read or sing in church, and people preferred the Psalms as they were in the Great Bible. Further, plenty of people still remembered them from then, and it was simply the preferred translation for the Book of Psalms. As a result, the Church of England continued to use the Great Bible Psalms. These are, in fact, the Psalms that one finds in the 1662 Book of Common Prayer, and largely why they're in the Book of Common Prayer, because you can read them out of the Book of Common Prayer without having to go to the Bible. The original concept would be that you simply turn in your Bible to the Psalms when you sing them, and the Book of Common Prayer would be for the liturgy, but the Book of Common Prayer comes complete with the Psalms now, due in part to this situation. Having said that, the Bishop's Bible Psalms were so unpopular that it was decided in future editions of the Bishop's Bible that were produced after its first edition would include the Great Bible Psalms. And I'm not sure what edition of the Bishop's Bible first included them, and can't look them up now because I'm in a bit of a rush. But in later editions, the Great Bible Psalms were added to the Bishop's Bible. So the Bishop's Bible, for a while, had two collections of psalms in them. They had the original translation for the Bishop's Bible and the previous Great Bible Psalms. Then, in later editions, even to that, they simply removed the Bishop's Bible Psalms, and the Book of Psalms in the Bishop's Bible was the Great Bible Psalms. As a result, the Great Bible Psalms are, in fact, part of the Bishop's Bible. They may not be an original part of the Bishop's Bible, but they were added to it and made a significant contribution to it. So, even though I shall be reading the Psalm translation from the Bishop's Bible, I shall also be reading the Great Bible Psalms to complement this set. Now, when I originally started this, I actually did 50 of the Great Bible Psalms, and they are already present on various platforms to which I have posted them. For that matter, I also completed the first 15 chapters of the book of Genesis. I've decided that since there has been such a long period of time between the original uploads and now, that I shan't just start where I left off and start adding more. I will be reloading the first 15 chapters of Genesis with revision to the videos and perhaps the audio, and shall do the same with the first 50 chapters of the Great Bible Psalms. I shall also be adding 2 additional psalms to this year. The reason for that shall be because I am going to release 1 Great Bible Psalm per week. But I'll get to that in a moment. For now, I would like to say that, as far as the first 15 chapters of the book of Genesis are concerned, and as far as the 50 Psalms are concerned, I'm largely not going to re-record the audio or make new video. I will, however, be putting them through a video editing software and making slight revisions to the existing videos. That will create a distinction between the re-uploaded version and the original, but as far as it is concerned, they should be the same. There will be a few exceptions to this. There are a few audio recordings, especially in the Great Bible Psalms, where the audio didn't come out perfectly well, or I used bad equipment and it sounds terrible. As a result, I will be re-recording some of those if I can't clean up the audio. Likewise, the same will be done for the book of Genesis. But for the most part, while I don't want to give too much away, I would like some things to be discovered, I really am not making that much of an alteration. I will be altering the video and perhaps slightly the audio in each. But for the most part, there'll be re-uploads of what already exists. However, I don't feel comfortable just starting with Genesis chapter 16 and starting with Psalm 51. I do want to start over from the beginning, which is also why I'm beginning on the first Sunday. And it has to do with how I shall be presenting it, as my gift to the world for both Christmas and for New Year, and again for the other Christmas. So how is it that I intend on presenting this Christmas, New Year, Christmas present? Here is how, and it should explain why I'm presenting it the way I'm doing it. Previously, I was simply producing the videos and posting them whenever I felt like. And that is why I have so many of the Great Bible Psalms, more so than chapters of Genesis. But now I'm going to be presenting them in a more methodical fashion. Again, I can't guarantee the future. I've already had a computer crash and a house burning down, and I might get delays in other ways that are smaller. If so, and if the delay is small, I might be able to simply double some of these up and catch back up to my schedule. But presuming everything works perfectly, just to explain the layout without saying it will, my plan is very simple. This video shall be the first of the Great Bible that you see, the introduction, and it shall be released on the first day of January 2025. This video largely exists to explain the project. You already know that if you're listening to it. I know it's very annoying to have that explained to you, but there it is. I intend on releasing the entire Bible of the Old Testament, the Apocrypha, and the New Testament over a 3-year period. 2025 shall be the Old Testament, meaning that by the end of 2025, the entire Old Testament should be present. In 2026, I shall move on to the Apocrypha. And in 2027, I shall move on to the New Testament. I shall go into greater detail on this in my longer introduction to be released shortly before the release of the Bishop's Bible proper. But for the Old Testament, without discussing the Apocrypha or the New Testament, there are 929 chapters of the Old Testament, if you go by chapter rather than book. I decided to treat that as having 930 chapters. This way, if I begin on Sunday of the year of our Lord 2025, and I read 3 chapters a day for 6 days, this will mean that I have completed, by the end of 2025, 930 chapters. Of course, there's only 929, like I said. But I'm not going to leave a blank spot. It's not like I'm going to read 3 a day until the final day and then only read 2 chapters. There will be something added to bring it up to 930. But I don't want to tell what that is because I don't want to spoil the surprise. As such, I'm simply going to present it and hope that you figure it out afterward. I will be re-recording an introduction to the Bishop's Bible after the project is completed, and an introduction to the Old Testament after it is completed, for people in the future who may want to watch it in that different order. Nevertheless, I have 930 chapters of the Bishop's Bible, and I make this one guarantee. The additional chapter is actually part of the Bishop's Bible. Having said that, even though I've already released the 50 Psalms from the Great Bible, I will be enhancing them and cleaning up the audio and presenting them with certain other edits. Most notably, the first 12 of these Psalms were recorded before I fell into the pattern that I'm using, and because I want a sense of uniformity, I shall be altering them slightly, because originally I didn't have a clear way of introducing them, and I think I said things like Psalm 1 from the Great Bible and simply launched into it. But since it's actually for the Bishop's Bible, I thought that I should include that information. Now, when I was first going through this, even though I knew this was for the Bishop's Bible, I didn't actually make that correction to any of the videos, and I left them up, of course. But starting in Psalm 13, I introduced all of the Psalms as Psalm number from the Great Bible, presented for the Bishop's Bible. But the first 12 don't actually do that, and I've re-recorded the introduction or inserted information into the existing introductions in order to make them more uniform. I've also done other slight alterations to the imagery that is involved using software editors like Shortcut Video Editor, and I've cleaned up the audio and in a few cases re-recorded it if necessary, and did the same, of course, with the first 15 chapters of Genesis, and made a few other alterations which I will explain after they have been presented. I don't want to spoil any surprises for anyone who happens to watch. But there will be these alterations. Nevertheless, I will be re-uploading from Genesis chapter 1, and at the end of the first week there shall be 18 chapters. Every Saturday I shall release a Great Bible Psalm. As there are 52 weeks, there will be a minimum of 50 Psalms, but more than likely 52. And I will let you see how I solve the problem, but I want the same number of Psalms for every year of the project, and there are 3 years of the project. And I have a solution for how to do that with only 50 Psalms, but I don't want to give it away. Having said that, here is how I shall be presenting the work. It shall be on this wise. Starting on the first Sunday of the year, I shall begin anew, re-uploading Genesis chapter 1, and I shall also load Genesis chapter 2 and Genesis chapter 3. Please note, I'm being a bit figurative with my language. In truth, I will be loading all of the videos at roughly the same time that I already have made so that they can be released on a schedule. I will also sometimes refer to this as me reading them, even though it's pre-recorded. This is simply a convention of speech. Please do not hold it against me. Having said that, I shall release 3 chapters of the Bishop's Bible a day for 6 days a week, for a total of 18 chapters a week. And then every Saturday I shall release a great Bible psalm. With that said, there are certain things that should be noted. There are 150 psalms, and I want the same number of psalms for every part of the Bible. With there being 3 parts of the Bible, you would think that would mean 50 psalms each. The problem is that there are 52 weeks a year, and I want 1 a week. So how did I solve that? I have a solution, but I don't want to tell you because I don't want to spoil the surprise. Nevertheless, I will tell you this much. I have a solution. Really 2, and I haven't decided which one I'll use, but I have time to make that determination. Still, you will get at least 50 psalms from the Great Bible. And possibly 52. For the Great Bible Psalms, though, I'm simply going to re-upload them with slight adjustments to the imagery. Perhaps sharper image or better color and adjustments to clean up the audio a bit, with a few of them being re-recorded because the audio quality was poor and I couldn't fix it. However, there will be edits made to Psalm 1 through 12. That's because they were the first psalms I did, and while I don't remember if I did them before I did Genesis chapter 1 or not, I think I did Genesis chapter 1 first, I hadn't worked out the uniform way in which I would introduce them. Starting at Psalm 13, I introduced all of the psalms the same way. I would say, Psalm number from the Great Bible, presented for the Bishop's Bible. But for Psalm 1, I simply said, Psalm 1 from the Great Bible, and I didn't really have the uniform way of presenting it for the first 12, so I've either re-recorded the introduction of certain psalms or inserted certain information into the psalms, editing those first 12 to make them more uniform to the latter. I wouldn't have bothered doing that had my house not burned down and I was just presenting them, because even though I may look back on it and regret not making them all uniform, it's not worth the bother. But if I'm going to re-upload them anyway, why not fix that tiny little detail? With that said, though, because I'm going to begin animating again, there will be visual differences between the old videos, the 50 psalms that I've already recorded, and the first 15 chapters of Genesis, and what I present to you now. And there are 3 reasons for that, one of which being simply a practical reality. It is very difficult to perfectly recreate something. Once my house burned down, it took my animation software and computer with it, and all my presets. And while I'm confident that I can recreate the images close enough, I may make mistakes here or there. So I've not bothered trying to make it exactly the same. Just close enough will do. If all I need is for it to be close enough, then that is what I will strive for. However, I also want to honor the fact that so much time has passed and honor the change. As such, I've also intentionally chosen to make alterations in certain things. I've decided to intentionally alter the liturgical robes that I wear as a bishop in my cartoon form, for example. This is because I'm using the royal wedding pack from Reallusion, which was created ahead of the wedding of Prince William to Lady Kate. It came with 3 bishops' figures, as well as a military uniform to be worn by William. Of course, this was created before his actual wedding, and he ended up wearing a very different uniform than what is present. But I used the body for the military uniform for Prince William ostentatiously for God the Father, who accompanies me in the videos. At least a cartoon representation of him does. And my logo also represents me, both of which will be present in the new recordings as well. I'm not changing that. And I'm not changing the fact that God the Father will be dressed in the military uniform of Prince William, or that I shall be a bishop. My symbol, of course, doesn't wear clothes, it's just a symbol, and it will be there. However, the royal wedding pack came with 3 bishops' robes, numbered 1, 2, and 3. And for fairly obvious reasons, I chose robe 1 for the Old Testament. I was going to choose robe 2 for the Apocrypha and robe 3 for the New Testament, also for obvious reasons. However, I might change that. And at the time I'm recording this, I haven't actually finalized the animation yet. I might go 3, 2, and 1, thus creating a bit of a disparity. I've also changed the mitre I shall be wearing. I've decided that there shall be 3 mitres for this. A mitre with a single cross on it for the Old Testament, 2 crosses on it for the Apocrypha, and 3 crosses on it for the New Testament. Thus, if you look at the mitre I'm wearing, you will know which testament you're in automatically. Of course, the new mitre didn't show up in the first 15 chapters of the book of Genesis, and doesn't show up at all in the Great Bible Psalms, since I don't wear a mitre in them. I'm in a church behind a pulpit. The Great Bible is not going to be affected by this at all. I'm just not going to put the mitre in. But for the first 15 chapters of Genesis, I shall be adding the new mitre, though it will be added in a way that won't require extensive alterations. There is a second reason, though, for which I didn't mention, I meant to, why I'm changing the look. The first, of course, like I said, is just practical reality. I probably could try and get it to look as close as possible to the original, and I might succeed, or I might be a little off. But by not putting so much pressure on myself, I can make it look nearly the same, but not exactly the same. Having said that, though, there is a second reason why I would change the look, and that is because there has been so much time passed, and I should honor that change and honor that time. This will create a very clear distinction between the older videos and the new, which will still be present even in the re-uploads, which will let people know when the re-uploads were. It honors the change and events that have occurred during that time. I also intend on marking the occasion of when I lost certain files and my computer crashed when I get to the Book of Exodus, but I'll discuss that later. These changes in style combine with the third reason, and that is simply editorial. It is easier when sorting things to know time passes, and having a very quick visual cue will let me know. Having said all that, I've already created, for the most part, all the assets and animations I need, so it shouldn't be that hard to finalize them. At the time I'm making this recording, I have not finalized the animation. However, when I do, it will be very clearly distinct in visual style from the old, while at the same time being very familiar. It's mostly the same, but slightly off, you might say. Having said that, you will not actually get a glimpse of my new style of the way things will be done, which is really only a slight revision of how they used to be, on the 16th chapter of Genesis. You see, while I'll be loading chapters 1 through 15 again, that will get me up to Thursday. The first new chapters for the Bishop's Bible that I will be loading will be on a Friday. And I want to introduce my new style on a Sunday. I also want to honor the fact that I am beginning anew with this project. To honor the house being burned down, to honor my past. So as a result, the first 6 chapters that I recorded beginning anew for the project, beginning at chapter 16, are going to be slightly different than what I present for the rest of the time, with the first 3 being very different. The first 3 are actually more slideshows with slight animation that I added by hand. It took a little while, but I was able to create a bit of a hand animation. My original intention was to make each one with different slides, but after my computer crashed and took those with it, I rapidly created, using a largely recycled imagery, the 3 chapters. But they are arranged differently, and some of them have images that others don't. They are distinct from each other. Still, Genesis chapter 16, 17, and 18 are a bit more pastiche, and they represent the break. They are the first videos that I present to you that are new, because the first 15 chapters had already been done. And they mark the loss of my house by fire. They mark that transition. And the first time you see the new assets that I've created for this project, and the first time you get a glimpse of the new way things will be on the following Sunday. But even then, the first 3 videos that I present will only be partially of that new style. This is because when I was creating this project, I went to Desgo and I loaded some still images of various videos that I had created, including the Bishop's Bible, to see what would happen while playing around with it. And one of the images, which I created to try and get rid of the people in the image and just have the background, came out where it looked like the same yard and tree and church. But the church was overgrown with plants like moss or perhaps vines. It was greener, like it had been abandoned and not properly maintained. As a result, I decided that would be my background for the first 3 videos that I produce in the new style. As if I am returning to a church after having left it for years, as if my house burning down forced me to go afar and I couldn't be at the church anymore and it ceased to function and has been abandoned, but now I'm back. The first 3 videos that I'm going to release after Genesis 15 will, of course, be the slideshows, and then that would be chapters 16, 17, and 18, and chapters 19, 20, and 21 will feature that background. They will also feature certain transitions that will make them look unique, even though they have the same background. You will be able to tell immediately what I was doing with them. However, the first time you truly see new animation in this series will be chapter 21 of Genesis. And that will mark the transition from honoring the past when my house burned down, honoring the amount of time that had passed, into an actual revitalization. Then thereafter, the new style shall take over. That is, until the last few chapters of the book of Exodus, where I want to mark the computer crashing, but I will get to that later as well. Still, to close this out with the final bit of explanation that is needed, the Old Testament has 929 chapters. I have raised that number to 930. I have not done so by simply inventing a 930th slot, but I do want it to be perfectly balanced. I don't want to read 3 a day until the last day when I only read 2. I have added a chapter to the Old Testament, but I haven't added anything to the Bishop's Bible. Everything I'm presenting is in the Bishop's Bible for this year, and I'm hoping to have the entire Old Testament ended by the end of this year. The Bishop's Bible is being presented predominantly for its historical significance. Thus, I shall be pronouncing words in a historical way. A lot of it is more influenced by French. So instead of captain, I'll say captain. Instead of mountain, I'll say mountain. And I shall also be saying certain archaic words. It's like, instead of shall be, that's all one word, shall be. These are examples, but I will be reading it in a very awkward fashion, because on the one hand, I want to keep the historical nature of the work intact, and I want the listener to hear the historical aspects of it. While on the other hand, I still want it to be understandable, so I'll sometimes speak slower or more theatrically to convey that, as well as, of course, to dramatize the text. The primary reason for presenting the text, of course, is historical preservation. This text, while it was never popular in its own time, still went on to be a base text for the Authorized King James Version of the Bible, the most influential English Bible translation to have ever existed. And it did, in fact, serve as an official Bible for the Church of England. It was part of the historical Protestant Reformation, as well as the contrast to the Reformed theology that came out of Geneva, hence the Geneva Bible. It is an important part of history that I'm surprised no one covers more often, but it was never a popular Bible, and I will admit that it is a bit clunky in parts myself, even though I am reading it and have a certain fondness for it now because of this. Still, the primary reason for presenting it is for history, and I hope that those who listen will gain from it in that regard in the study of history. However, it is still the Holy Bible, so if you wish to listen to it, simply to hear someone read to you the Bible, albeit in archaic language, or perhaps because it is an archaic language, because you think it makes it sound more majestic, which some do, then you are most welcome to do so as well. Listening to the Bible in the archaic speech, simply because of its beauty, is also appreciated. And some of you may simply wish to listen to the Bible, because it is the Bible, the very word of God, and you draw great wisdom and inspiration from it, and you are free to do so as well. Anyone who wishes to listen to this Bible for historical reasons, for poetic reasons, for entertainment reasons, or for spiritual reasons, or to gain guidance and wisdom, may do so for any of those purposes without any complaint from me. Because even though the primary aim here is the preservation of a historical text and presentation of it for historical reasons, it also has that dimension, and I shan't deny it, nor shall I say that it cannot also share in purpose with the historical preservation. For indeed, the Bible should be preserved on its own right simply because it is the Bible, and should be read and studied because it is the Bible, and it does contain much wisdom, whether you believe in Christianity or not, and it should be read and understood. And I present it to you now, dear friends. And I shan't end this video in my customary fashion, because this video is part of a larger project. This is not the ending. It is the beginning. So, I shall modify my ending, but still present it to you, and say, at this point, that I have nothing further to say, and shall take my leave of you now after a prayer. Dear Lord, Please guide me in this project. Please help me keep on track with it. Please let me present it as it is. And please, dear Lord, do so unless something greater for me is planned. Lord, let any who hear it enjoy it and profit from it, spiritually, intellectually, culturally, historically. And let, dear Lord, this work do good, and let good come to all that hear it, and let it profit, dear Lord, those who hear it. Amen. As I said, I haven't much else to say, but I don't wish to close on my customary fashion. Because even though this video is ending, this video is only a small part of a larger project, an introduction to the Bishop's Bible's return. As such, I shall end it this wise. Instead of saying what I normally say, I shall revise it and say this. I haven't much else to say, so I shall leave you with the presentation. Thank you. God bless and enjoy.